What's up, coaches? Welcome back to the Dollars and Dumbbells podcast. I'm your host, Justin Green, certified financial planner. Today, I've got an awesome conversation for you with Tim Walcott. But I learned my lesson. I should always record these intros the day of because I got hit with a cold and lost my voice. And so I'm finally getting that back now. And so I'm excited to let you know kind of what we talked about. Tim is an online health and fitness coach. He's building a really great business, but what I love about his business is he's building with intentionality on being profitable and sustainable. Tim and I have had so many great conversations in the DM that it just made sense to have him hop on camera, chat this out, and let you listen in and learn from him on what he's building, how he's building a great business to fuel his personal wealth, because he knows someday he won't be an online health and fitness coach anymore. And so he's allowing that cash flow to build flexibility in his personal finances that will allow him to tap into those opportunities to explore other business ventures down the road. All right, without further ado, let's hop into the combo. Tim, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, dude. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. I'm excited. We've had many conversations in the DMs, and I respect what you got going on over there, what you're building. And so I'm happy to get you on here, talk shop a little bit. I think we'll probably dive into some wealth and money topics as well. But why don't you introduce yourself a little bit to the coaches that are listening? Let them know who you are, what you got going on.
Sure. So I'm Tim Walcott. I started off as an in-person trainer years ago. Did that I'll make this as quick as possible. Did that for about 8 years and then sold that recently, earlier this year, and went full-time online and, pivoted, transitioned that multiple times. But now I'm at a point where I'm basically, I do a little bit of like in-person stuff here and there, but I don't really like have a business doing that anymore. But entirely now just working with my online coaching business. Mostly helping men lose fat. So that's where I'm at.
Sweet, dude. So you owned a gym, right?
Well, a private training studio.
Okay, gotcha. And so what prompted you to kind of shut that down, go online now? Were you running that during COVID or did you start it up after?
Yeah, actually I started 2017. So
Okay, so during COVID. So I'm surprised you went through COVID and finally sold it now.
Yeah. So I was like 3 years in business when COVID hit. And then COVID, that was crazy. Because I was we can get into it as much as you want or if you don't want, but I was very vocal about COVID back then.
And like not wanting things to shut down.
Yeah, it got me into trouble. So I had cops come to my business. I had that whole thing I had cops.
Okay, because you wouldn't shut it down.
Yeah, I didn't shut it down. So we had I think 3 or 4 different lockdowns.
Because you're in Canada, for everyone listening.
Yeah, and it was a different vibe up here during COVID. So the first time in March or whatever it was, 2020, I shut down, and then I was like, this is weird, whatever. Maybe we're all going to die. And then a few weeks later, I was like, oh, this is a complete scam. This is the biggest fake news thing I've ever seen in my life. This is insane. And then that's when I'm like, oh, I like have to open. So then I did. And then they ordered like other they reopened back up and then they ordered more lockdowns. And I was like, okay, like morally, I am obligated to never close. So, and then I felt, for whatever reason, I'm also morally obligated to let everyone know. So I was pretty obnoxious, and I posted a lot. And I'm in a small town at the time. I was in a small town, so and everyone knew my family, like they know my name. So like it's not like everyone knew who I was, and they knew who my dad was. And so word traveled pretty quick, and then cops were called, and it was kind of crazy. So then I ended up that ended up like passing over or whatever. I guess COVID kind of dwindled out or whatever, and then I ended up selling it. So it would have been like kind of fizzling out, I guess, like 2022-ish, 2023 or whatever. And then 2 years later, sold it to someone who was working with me for me at the time, and that's who's operating it now. And then I went full time online. I had the online business at the time, but like kind of doing what a lot of in person trainers do, where it's like, oh yeah, some online clients, 6 to 8 clients that I'm always kind of training here and there, but I didn't really have good like systems. Like the focus was in person for sure. And then I realized I'm like, I don't really love in person as much anymore. And I recognize that it could be a huge crutch for me because I'm actually good at it. And I was like, okay, if I'm really good at it, I could probably be stuck here forever. And I don't want to do this forever. So that's what I was like. I want to build a business that to me has a lot more potential and higher ceiling. Even if I don't push it to that ceiling, I want that. And with the small town, small like private studio in-person training thing, brick and mortar, I was like, man, this I don't want to get creative with this one. I'd rather get creative with an online business.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like what you said there too. Is like I can push it even if I decide I don't want to.
Yeah,
So many
yeah,
people
yeah.
think they have to scale. They have to scale the online coaching business. And so what
Mhm.
you said there was like it was kind of cool. Like I can if I end up wanting to. Like right.
Yeah, well, that's like, dude, I've gone through a whole thing with that right now where it's like I recognized pretty quick where I was like, I don't know if I want to like do the traditional bro scaling thing. But yeah, so like basically the last year for me has been like I've scaled, but like what really like scaling really is, right? Is like revenue and costs are going to scale up. If your revenue just scales up, you just grew. You know what I mean? Like you just grew your business. Like, so it's like
Mm-hmm.
you probably didn't even really scale. So like my margins got better and my revenue got better. So it's like I just grew. I didn't take on really any more expenses. So it's like kind of,
It's a
if that's
good
what you're
way to
looking,
do
it's a
it.
good idea. But like most people like want to scale because they just want top line. And I'm like, I don't really care about top line. Like, I mean, I do to the extent that like top line is still required. You need revenue, but I don't really care if I ever hit 100K a month or not if I'm breaking even.
100%, dude. That's one of the biggest misconceptions that goes on in the coaching space is that people will chase these, 50K, 100K months. And it's like, okay, but your ad spend, your assistant coaching team is 90K, 95K. So you're making, I've had coaches that have built this and then had to wind it all the way back down because they're like, I'm making less than my assistant coaches, but I'm running a $1 million business. It's like, well, I don't know about you, but I would rather run a like less stressful 200K business and take home 80% of that than run a very stressful $1 million business, especially in the online coaching space, right? Because I think the other thing that people get a little tripped up on is like traditionally, if you were to build a business like that and you scaled it, that could be okay if you're building a business that's going to sell. I think most online coaching businesses aren't really sellable because most of them are built around a personal brand and a coach as kind of that like primary figure. Now, I
Yeah.
have seen some businesses that sell. I just don't think it's as common, right? And so that's why you have to focus on the actual take home and the profit in the business rather than just scaling the revenue number, knowing that like, hey, you're going to sell that for a 3x multiple down the road. That doesn't
Yeah.
really happen with coaching business. So it's like, what are you scaling for?
Ego.
Yeah.
That's what
Ego
it is.
doesn't pay the
Right? It's like
bills.
I get it. I get it. Like I mean, I've never hit 100K a month, but like that'd feel cool to go tell some people, I guess. You know what I mean? Like I get it. I get it. But I don't want I still want I love business. I love working, but like I want my business to feed my life. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I don't I go through lots of phases where it's backwards and I've made those mistakes where it's like I'm sacrificing other priorities for my business. But like over the grand scheme of things, I want to be very like deliberate with the life and business that I'm creating, so I don't end up in a situation like you hear people a lot, which is very very common, where they wake up and they're like, "Oh my goodness, I hate this machine I've built." And I'm like, "Bro, I've not liked my business many times at a smaller operation. Not liking my business with a larger operation with more obligation, more mouths to feed, more liability, like nah, I don't want that. I'm down with more responsibility. I'm not afraid of risk, but I think just being like intentional about it as opposed to just like chasing this crazy thing and then being like, wait a minute, if I'm making like, if I do 100K, 90K in expenses, I'm taking 10K home. I'm literally making the same I did when I hit my first 10K month and had like $90 in software expenses. It's like, you're like, why wouldn't you just go back to that? Like,
When you step back and think about it, it's like, what is the point? The only time it genuinely makes sense is if you're planning to sell the business, which
Right.
even then, I try and point out, like, if somebody's going to buy a coaching business, what do you think they're buying?
Well, I don't even think, I mean, in theory, they're buying the book of business, but
Yeah,
like
but what? But why? Why would they want to buy the book of business?
to generate cash flow, like make
And
profit.
how do you? And how do you exactly? So if
Yeah.
you're running a not profitable business at scale, who's
Yeah.
going to come in and buy that? Why would they want to buy a whole bunch of work that produces no profit unless they have a model that they're going to, jack it up? But then in theory, if they do that, then a lot of the clients might leave anyway. So it's like, that's where it's like this backwards thinking of like, even if you are planning to sell, you should actually be focused on being profitable and very profitable, because
Yeah.
that's what you would be selling.
Yeah. I don't even know. I don't even think people think that far. Like, I think you're giving them too much credit. That sounds maybe disrespectful, but like, I honestly feel like most people don't even, like, if you were like you're breaking down, like, no, you would only sell, or sorry, you would only, like, if you're gonna like really like worship the scale god, then like you're gonna do it to sell or whatever. Like, you're looking at like an emotional decision way too logically. Like, it's
That's
like, this
fair.
is the right way to do it. But I was like, I don't. If I think about it, I'm like, I don't believe people are actually looking at it even that logically. You know what I mean? They just
Yeah,
push it.
that's
Like,
fair.
I like what I've created is like, or this is my, I shouldn't say what I've created. What my kind of design is, because I know you want to go down this rabbit hole, I'm sure, and whatever. So like, and you'll appreciate this. The way I look at it is, I identify as a coach because there's a large like identity portion, I think, with coaches that probably drive this as well, where it's like, I'm a coach, but like, I'm a fitness guy, whatever, which is good. I see myself as that too, but I also am like very, I think I'm self-aware enough to know that like I won't be that forever. Fitness will always be a pillar of my life, but like I'm gonna put on different hats.
Mm,
So I don't know what different hats I'm going to wear yet, but I'm very open-minded that the fitness coaching hat will come off at some point, and I will do something else and multiple other things. And so the way that I look at it right now is like, I am, as far as like my wealth building strategy, I guess, is like, um basically like build a profitable business. I don't know a timeline, but like build a profitable business, and then squeeze as much profit out of it as I can over the next, let's put a number on it, because I actually haven't even done that. Over the next 5-10 years, let's say that next 5-10 years, squeeze as much profit out of it as I can. And then with that capital, I want to put into other business ventures specifically, because I enjoy business. Like, I like business. So I'm like, business is very wide ranging. It doesn't have to be a service based online coaching company. There's so many things I can do. So knowing that, I'm like, there's probably going to be opportunities. And if there isn't, I'm going to go find some. And at some point, I'll probably exit coaching, and I'll pulled out, squeezed out a bunch of profit out of that. And yeah, at that point, like, I think that's the smart way. It's almost like, I look at it like, even right now, it's like I'm pulling out profit and I'm just putting it into, like, for me anyway, like, very um, high risk assets, traditionally speaking. For me, it's not high risk, but like, like a lot of crypto stuff is what I like to invest in. Um, and that's actually like kind of my strategy, is like, just take that, keep my expenses low, have no debt, and that should kind of keep growing, and then I can deploy that into a different business venture down the road. And that might be 5 years, might be 2 years, might be 10 years. I don't know, but I won't be coaching forever. That's how I see it.
I think that's a really smart way to think about it. Maybe not the crypto part, just a disclaimer on that, which just fine. That's your preference. But
Yeah.
I'm talking about the idea
I'm
that
a
you
little
won't be
insane. I'm a
coaching.
little insane. So you tell the audience that they legally, but like, I'm definitely insane when it comes to like my investing tolerance.
Well, what I do like what you said there, though, and this is actually something that we were talking beforehand. Paul O'Neill said, I think when we were chatting before the podcast or on the podcast, but he was like saying one of his mentors early on looked at him and was like, "How many trainers?" Because at that time he was really into like the collegiate, I think, like training.
S&C. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he was like, "How many of them do you know that have retired as like at that position?" He was like, "None." And like I think it's the same thing, right? Is I talk to a lot of coaches and they can't envision retirement, and that's the thing, is like it may not be retirement. It may just be being able to pursue other opportunities down the road, whatever that might be, because you
Mm.
might not want to be. How old are you, Tim?
34.
Okay, so you might not want to be a coach in 15 years when you're 50 years old,
Yeah.
or in 25 years when you're 60 years old. You may not want to retire,
Yeah.
right? Like you might not want to ride off into the sunset and go play golf every day, or you guys do like hockey over in Canada, right? You play hockey at 60, and
Yeah. I would do.
I'm basically from Canada. I'm allowed to make
Yeah.
Canadian jokes. I don't
Yeah.
know if
Yeah.
you know that.
Yeah.
I have permission,
Yeah.
and so it's just having that opportunity, that flexibility to be able to do whatever it is you might want to do. And that doesn't have to be retirement, right? When I talk to coaches a lot, I don't even use the word retirement, even though
Mm.
technically I might be like suggesting like a retirement, self-employment retirement plan,
Yeah.
because basically all I'm doing is like building future flexibility for them. Because
Yeah.
if you're on that treadmill of just spending everything that you're making,
Mm.
there's nothing left. And then you get 10 years down the road and you're like, wow, I built this awesome business and I have absolutely nothing to show for it. Right.
Yeah. That
Um,
would be a nightmare.
I want to dive back into kind of the building of the business though, because I see you
Sure.
all over. Right. And so I want to, well, actually, one thing I want to credit you for, because I see this in a lot of business books where they talk about, create a process, own it, name it. And like, rather, what I see you do really well is I don't see you be like, hey, sign up for coaching with Tim, or like, DM me for coaching. Like, sure, I'm sure you do that sometimes, but
Yeah.
I see you talk about the macro intuitive protocol all the time, right? Like
Yeah.
that's your thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're not quote unquote selling it. You're just like,
Mhm.
I helped so and so do this by installing this. And that
Yeah.
just creates this like curiosity, even for me. And so I'm
Yeah.
sure it does for other people of like,
Yeah.
well, what is that? And I know you actually have a YouTube video then to like, I think where you walk through more on what the
Yeah.
process actually is.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, like, where did you learn, like, not the actual protocol, but the concept of like leading with that, rather than so many coaches I see just be like, sign up for my one-to-one coaching.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any one place because I rapidly consume uh, consultant and coaching business information.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a mental illness. Um,
I'm
and
like
so
I'm in a spot right now where I'm trying to like not consume, because I
that's,
also I'm a
yeah,
big learner, and I
yeah,
actually think that holds me back sometimes, because then I get like
yep,
overwhelmed between
yep.
like A, B, and C, and I'm like, and then I just don't do any of them.
That's exactly. I go through that exact phase. I'm literally coming out of a high consumption phase, and I'm getting pretty good now at recognizing that because I go through the exact same thing. I think everyone actually kind of does, just different
Mm-hmm.
levels maybe. But yeah, I'll consume, and because I like to consume, and then I'll be like, okay, lots of information, cool. And then at some point, I'm like, okay, I haven't done anything. Time to implement. So what I'm actually in the middle of doing is deliberately mapping out. I won't necessarily pre-schedule, but I'm trying to like live my life in a way where I'm like I'm in a consumption phase, or I'm in like a knowledge acquisition phase. And I'm moving right now into an implementation phase. And I think it's important to have those distinctions, because if you're trying to implement and you're like, oh, I'm going to start implementing, and you just say it on a random day, on a Monday, on December 1st, like Wednesday rolls around and you're feeling some type of way emotionally, and then you just go back into consumption mode. It's like, what I need to do is like, if I know I'm in, it's kind of like if you're in a diet phase, you're in a fat.
I was literally just thinking it. I was like, what does this remind you of? It's
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
maintenance and then a cut.
exactly. And you need to have those like hard binaries for your brain to label, I think, because then it's like, wait a minute, emotionally, I want to go consume. Like I just ordered a new book, and normally I would dive right into it. And I'm probably going to read it anyway because it forces me to chill out and just read. Reading's good probably
Mm-hmm.
anyway. But I'm a little careful with like right now, like podcasts and YouTube. Like I'm a little careful with over consuming that for that exact reason. Because I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm in an implementation phase. I need to take all of this and then put it into the tools.
Yep.
Um, so your specific question, like how did I learn that? I guess was like I don't really know. Like I don't really know
You
how I
can't
got.
pinpoint it.
No, not really. But like, do you want some of the psychology behind it? Like why I do it?
Yeah, dude, yeah. Let's hit it.
I don't know which direction you want to go with it, but like, because I know a lot of, I know a lot of coaches like they will do the whole like, um, you know, just like hard call to actions for coaching or
Hmm.
whatever. It's like DM me for coaching or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that, I don't think. But like for most people, I think context is kind of lost when you like zoom out and realize like no one really wants to hire you right now, but they don't really know, right? They don't really understand why, like they get crickets or whatever. And my kind of like strategy with that is the whole like in the business world, which you're probably like aware of, like people will call that in the coaching world, right? Like your unique selling proposition or your unique mechanism. So I realized, and this actually this ties into like wealth building, I think, in the sense of like thinking a little bit more long term with like the machine I'm creating, because I have like part of my coaching business will be leveraged through my ever growing personal brand. That is deliberate. And then the goal is really that personal brand can then exit the coaching, not necessarily sell, but just exit, and then
Hmm.
that personal brand I can still leverage into other things and put and help grow other assets that can ideally pay me without as much input. That would be actually the goal, right? um, and can grow other things, but I can still use the personal brand that I grew during fitness. So there's the one channel that you have, like growing a personal brand that helps build the business. I think a lot of people lean too much into that, and I don't think that's a bad. It sounds like, oh, don't do your personal brand. Like, no, no, probably still need to do that, like even more aggressively. But what I mean is, they're not doing enough of the other things. It's like, you know what I mean. So, like, and the other
Hmm.
things is going to be like having some type of system. Because this is the thing. This kind of like the marketing strategy that I'm using is like I'm going after typically like more sophisticated consumers. So they're guys that like understand how to track macros for the most part. They know how to work out. It's actually embarrassing if you even consider like if I put out content that implied that they are not consistent with their training, it would actually repel them. So, which is funny because a lot of people make content like that, not realizing it's making their audience feel like shit, right? It's like, bro, I don't have a problem at the gym. Like, I'm fine. You know, I have a nutrition issue right now. So the thing is, with knowing, understanding this, that it's like, this is what I'm getting to, like understanding that like the buyer's a little bit more sophisticated. These types of guys are not looking for like entirely the right guy or guide, woman or female, or sorry, a woman or man, to take them to a certain place. They're actually looking for a standardized process. I don't really care as much of like who it is. It just has to be like, oh, you seem trustworthy, cool. I don't need to know your story. But if I sell the system, then it takes a lot of the pressure off of me being likable, which is not that hard. I'm pretty likable. but if I use both, then it's great. But I think a lot of people lean too much into like, hopefully you like me, hopefully you trust me, hopefully you buy
Right.
me.
Hire Tim because you're buying Tim. Like,
Yeah, exactly. The whole
don't
thing
worry
where
about the other stuff. The bolts. Actually, as a finance guy and someone who is
yeah.
very like into features,
Mm-hmm.
I get like annoyed when people are too high level and they because a lot of marketing advice is like, oh, tell me the benefits, not the features. I'm like, no, I want the feat. I want to know exactly what's in this as well. And so there's like, I think you're saying is like some people go complete opposite of just like hire me, Tim, because I can help you do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, no, like I need to know, like I want the framework.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the features and benefits too, because I've been rolling around that in my brain as well, because that's like a classic Hormozy thing, right? Where it's like sell a vacation, not the plane trip. And I've actually like I think that's still timeless recommendation, generally speaking, but I think it's been applied too specifically, if that makes sense. Because I know exactly what you're saying. And I think people that
Well, I think you
maybe
need to be able to
later,
do both. You need to be able to be
yeah,
like, hey, this is the vacation. Then when they're like, oh, cool, how do I get there? You're like, oh, this is how we get you there. Because I think
yeah,
a lot of times people like, ah, oh, here's the vacation. And it's like, cool, how do we get there? It's like, ah, just, we'll just trust me type thing. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
dude,
uh,
exactly.
or they make it up on the fly because they do know how to get there, but they've never like put it into like tied it up in a bow. And
Hmm.
so, and since you bring up Hormozy, he's a great example of he names everything. Like when you go
Hmm.
through his book, there's so many different frameworks that he's put some
Yeah,
like cute little name on it. And
yeah.
that's all you're doing is just
you're just naming it. I've done a poor job of this, by the way. I should probably call that out as we're having this discussion. And so, just putting like being able to really quickly be like, oh, like, how do you get there? This is how. This is the thing. You've done a great job with that.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate it. And like, I'm only going to hammer it even more. I think a lot of people, I'm realizing how much like, if you just sell the vacation, the problem with that is like, I think that works really well if you go to 2020 or 2022 even. But like now that we're getting into 2026, every single person is selling the trip to Maui. So it's like you can't also do that now. You have to go, I'm going to bring you to Maui. Now I know that Mary and Jerome and Justin and everyone else is also selling you that, right? So you're blending in. That's the problem with just selling. But so if you stop there, you blend in. But you have to go, I'm selling you the same thing they are. But here's how I do it. So that's kind of what I'm doing is like, I help guys lose 20 pounds. Cool. Millions of other coaches do that. Tons, like at least thousands, right? So there's like lots of other people that you can go hire to help lose 20 pounds. I'm the only one who uses the macrointuitive protocol and various other frameworks to do that, right? So I think that's the key is like having an actual like system, and also too coming back to like understanding that if you are selling to a little bit more of a sophisticated buyer, it doesn't necessarily mean higher IQ, which I think a lot of people probably feel weird saying that, but it's just more sophisticated. They probably overthink, they probably like to get into the weeds. You might be that type of buyer where you're like, I want the features because I like to think about stuff that might not even matter, but it matters to me. And so that's where like what I've kind of shifted my marketing strategy towards is like sharing my systems and my frameworks so that people can attach like the outcome, the vacation to like, oh, I can connect the dots now in my head of how he does it, because it's not enough just to be like Tim saying he can bring me to this place. I don't think he's a liar, but also like, I don't trust you enough to give you thousands of dollars, which is, I think, like a problem for like a lot of coaches. It's like you have to show some of the features, or like the way that I'm thinking about it now, kind of what you're describing is James Kemp talks about this, who's like, I follow a lot of his work, is he says like show, don't tell. So if you
I was actually going to say, so the other thing kind of like what you were just saying was like, not only do they not know how to get there, they can't see it. And so they can't visualize it, which you already know. We've talked about this before. Is like I've also applauded you on that. Of like you do. I love watching you just kind of put a simple little sketch up and just being like, this is what it looks like. And it just, a lot of people are visual learners, and that goes beyond. What's that?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but the perfect example of this in your world is say like the standard like investment portfolio like growth, like a compound growth calculator would be like perfect. It's like if you just
did you do that because it's called hockey stick growth and you're Canadian? Is that why we did that?
Nice. If you told someone like if you invest $100 a week, you'll have $1 million in X whatever, and then you said here's why, and you just said a couple math formulas, even if you left that out, it doesn't matter. People would be like, like, I trust you. I don't think you're a liar, but like, okay. But if you like sit down with them, which is like what a lot of financial advisors do, right? You sit down, it's like, okay, let's plug it in. And then you can visually see. If you do it on like, you pull up a tab here on the internet, you can literally do it and it'll visually like show you. And then you're like, oh, month 1, month 2, month 6, year 2, year 6, year 8, year 10. You're like, oh, I can like see it happening. Then you go like, now that the belief has now set in and you're sold.
Yeah, 100%. I just did a YouTube video recently where I was like, I wanted to show someone I have a coach who does only about 10K a month, which some people would think like, oh, that's not good enough. You know what I mean? I just showed how what they're investing would lead to. And I'm trying to remember, actually, I might be confusing different videos. Anyways, the video I did recently was, a coach, how much they had to invest to reach $6 million portfolio, and it took them 15 years to hit their first million, but then showing them it only took, I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head, but it was like
you made an Instagram post recently about that too.
Yeah, it was like 8 years to then hit the next million, right? So the point is, don't quote me on the numbers here, but the point is it takes a really long time to get that first one.
Yeah.
And then less time for the second one. The third million after that's even less. And you can even boil this down to the first 100,000, right? It doesn't have to be the first million. That first 100,000, really hard to get to. But then that second 100,000, there's a thing that it's like once you get to like 300,000, you're halfway to a million, and that doesn't make sense for most people, right? Because you're like, no, it has to be 500,000, but no, it's like because the compound starts to pick up. So, it makes but just being able to show it and visualize it, because when you say that doesn't make sense to someone, but when you put it, whether it's a drawing or like I use like a cash flow chart and a software I have can kind of show you the compounding as well. It just changes it for people because now they can see it.
I think that's the biggest thing, man. It's just like visualizing it. And a lot of coaches, I think, would do better if they, I know this isn't really specifically a money thing, but like I think a lot of coaches would do better just like demonstrating like their sauce, because it ends up also like being bait for the business coaching industry, which like I'm a fan of in generally, but like it can be predatory like anything else, I guess. And but you can get these misdiagnoses, right? Where it's like maybe some of these coaches have like 20% closing rate, and then like it's sales, like I feel awkward, I don't feel good. It's like, oh, I'm bad at sales, like 100%. And it's like they don't realize that like you can just relieve like 90% of that sales pressure by just pre-selling with good marketing. And good marketing is just telling the truth. That's it. There's no manipulation. It's just demonstrating your sauce. You just show your sauce, which is why like all of my content is basically like my system, my USB, or it's me, or stuff about my clients. So it's like clients being social proof, me being like, I'm, trust and likability in the guy that's going to bring you. And then the third piece, if there's going to be like three pillars to it, third piece would be the USP, like the actual system of like, you're going to use a standardized process that I use with everyone, including myself. And it's like, okay, between those three things, this seems pretty likely that I will get that vacation. And then like people get on a sales call or whatever, or I have a conversation with them and they're like, yeah, like I'm ready to buy. There's no I wouldn't say I have any tremendous sales skills at all. Or I don't even really try. Like there's no, like I used to like care about that. And I was like, I don't even really care about sales. Like I just care about pre-selling, which is telling people, that sounds manipulative, but it's not. It's like I mean pre-selling, like actually.
It makes perfect sense, because most people will do the visual before and after as a transformations, right? Like that's like the oldest. I wouldn't even call it a trick, but that's like the oldest marketing tactic in the fitness industry, because it works, right? Because people can see like, oh, Joe did this, so I can do this, right? It puts them. But when what you're saying is you take it a step further. Not only do I show you like, hey, Joe could do this, you could also do this, Justin, but also here, watch me show you how I helped him, because when you're putting content out on your protocol, you're essentially coaching them via social media, right? And so they're like, oh, I really like the way Tim does this. And it's like, cool, that's exactly what it would be like if you worked with me. Like it would be the same exact thing. And so it's just another way of showing them the result and the process and kind of putting those two together. And you're not going to go viral, right? Like your content's not going to get a whole bunch of views, but it's going to get the right views, and it's going to convert hopefully better than the dancing reel that says, 5 tips to lose weight. And sure, maybe you have to mix that in as well, just to get some attention to kind of get them in deeper. But overall, like that's kind of the thought process, I would assume.
Yeah. I think it makes it, it's way more fun. Like I enjoy just showing like what I'm doing. Like my next move is going to be just like doubling down on like demonstrating, showing, not telling. And one of the ways that I'm going to do that is doing everything I'm already doing right now at a high volume and maintaining that volume. But then the thing I'm going to add in is I already record all of my client calls. And so I'm going to start taking pieces of those client calls after you use their permission and whatever I got to do, and then take pieces. Hey, check this out. Because I think like that's where, to go back to even what you were saying, right? It's like people, if you just sell the vacation, everyone's selling the vacation. So why would they trust you? And then you're saying, trust me though. And they're like, no, like I don't though, if I'm being honest. So it's like, I just really don't. Right. So, you got to remember, I think a lot of people don't realize that, like, if you say, hey, I'm a fitness coach, I can help you lose 20 pounds. Everyone else, like your actual potential buyer, is going to assume in their head how you do that if you don't tell them. So in their head, they're going to go, you're going to put me on Ozempic and I want to do this naturally, or you're going to make me do fasts and take shakes, or you're going to make me do cardio all the time, or I'm not going to be able to eat my favorite foods. Like, they assume that if you don't tell them. And people, like, I keep saying people, coach, think about that. And I think I made that mistake for a while too. It's like, if you make assumptions in your messaging or in your marketing, it's the biggest mistake you can do, because they're already going to make their own assumptions. You need to know what their assumptions are. So then you can actually, like, get ahead of those and then just tell them, hey, here's how I do it, so that you don't have to wonder or fill the gaps in because you had an experience with a coach years ago, or you used an app by yourself, or did a boot camp or a challenge or whatever you did, and you just assume that I'm going to make you do the same thing. Because how else would they know if I don't tell them, you know?
That's gold right there. That's pure gold. No, that's 100%. Like, I started thinking about my own stuff there for a minute as you were talking. I was just kind of thinking, like, how many things do I assume that when people see my stuff, they have no clue. So they're just going off their own assumptions. I'm assuming they know what I'm talking about. And, like, something as vague as, like, build wealth. It's like, well, what does that mean? Like, does that mean you're going to put me in a bunch of crypto? You're going to have me buy real estate?
Totally.
Like, whoa, what does that mean? I'm going to go buy a Rolex, a brand new car. Like, what's wealth? Like, what? So something as even simple as that, it just kind of got me thinking about, like, what are the assumptions I make on my end, or I guess that I don't clarify that my clients and my prospects are making on their end.
They're going to fill the gaps if you leave the gaps empty. So it's like, the way I look at it is like, it's your job to not leave those gaps empty, first of all, and second of all, make sure those gaps are full of what's the truth, like what you actually do. Like, if I was going to use you as an example, which I think you would appreciate, because, like, I'd be on a consumer end for your work, right? So it's like, from a consumer end, I trust you and I believe that you can get me where I want to go. The third thing is, I don't know how you do it. So I'm definitely in the dark on that. And that might be because you have the content out and I just haven't consumed it. So that's a reality. But it also might be you just don't make that much of that content. It could be that too, right? So, and I think a lot of people are in that position. And I think I was there for the longest time too, because I have a lot of people that follow me in my world. You probably have this too, where they're like, I love your stuff. And they're never going to pay you. And and that's okay. That's totally okay. But I think if that's like a massive chunk of your audience, like a disproportionately large chunk of your audience, then it's like, you're kind of doing it wrong. Do you know what I mean? I think I did that for a long time. And it's like, the missing piece was like, oh, I have a system, and like, I'm going to connect the dots so that you can see how I do it, so that you can get rid of all of your preconceived notions and assumptions that you already had in your head of how I do things. This is actually how I do it. Check this out. I go, oh, that's cool. I actually like that. I didn't know that's how you did it. I might be interested in this. Turns out I'm a potential buyer, and I didn't think I was.
That's great. Let's end it right there. Let everyone know, where can they find you, follow along, learn more about you, Tim. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, of course, dude. Thanks for having me. You can find me on Instagram at I'm Tim Walcott. I'm not in the business world. I do some consulting for like some coaches on the side and stuff, but that's not like a thing I really do. I'm definitely focused on like the actual growing my actual fitness coaching, but I love the business side of things. So if anyone like wants anything by me, or you want to like anything that I said here where you're like, I want to hear more about the philosophy or like strategy behind that, I'm happy to explain all that. You and I have chatted a little bit about that.
I was going to say, Tim's always down to send some voice memos. We get going in the DMs sometimes. I'm like, all right, I got to let you go get some work done, dude. Like, so, all right, cool, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me, man.